I want to talk to you today about the benefits of not having a will. First of all, if you don't have a will, benefit number one is when you die, there's not going to be any will contest because there's nothing to contest. Benefit number two, if you don't have a will, you might put off dying. Now, I have had several clients over the course of time state to me that if they sign a will, it's going to hasten their death. Now, actuarially, it hasn't worked out that way. But benefit number two is if you don't sign a will, you might not die or you might put off dying. Benefit number three is if you don't have a will, you don't have to make any decisions. In other words, you don't have to decide who gets whatever you're leaving your heirs. The legislature's already decided that for you. Now, each state has its own set of rules. So you have to look at your state laws, but basically your spouse is going to get most of your estate. Your children are going to get a big chunk of your estate, but you don't have to worry about that because the state's already made the decision for you. So if you don't have a will, you don't have to make any decisions. Next, people have come to me and they've said, well, it doesn't matter whether I have a will or not, the state's going to get it anyway. That doesn't hold much water anymore. The federal estate tax limits are now $10.68 million. If you're single, the limit is $5.34 million. Now, in some states, and there are only about a dozen of them left, they do have inheritance taxes, but they're not going to take 100% of your estate. So the old wives' tale that the state's going to get everything really doesn't hold much water anymore. Number five, you don't have to decide who's going to administer your estate. Believe it or not, the state has already determined that for you. Now, in most instances, if you die without a will, your spouse is going to administer your estate. But there's a second question that has to be addressed, and that is, what's your net worth? If you're leaving $300,000, the court will probably require your spouse to post a bond of $300,000. How does he or she do that? Well, you got to put up $300,000 worth of collateral to an insurance company, which will then issue a fidelity bond. Now, if your spouse doesn't have that wherewithal, then the court's probably going to appoint a trust company. That a trust company is exempt from posting a bond, the fidelity bond. But the trust company is going to take probably 2.5%, maybe 5% of your estate to administer the estate. But again, if you don't have a will, you don't have to decide who's going to be in charge of your estate, and you don't have to take certain steps such as saying, I want my administrator, personal representative to serve without bond, which means you don't have to buy a fidelity bond. If you don't have a will, all this is taken care of. Now, if you think, well, gee, I would like to have a little control over where my estate goes, then by all means, prepare a will. Go to a lawyer, pay a lawyer to have this done. If you don't want to pay a lawyer, then buy a do-it-yourself will kit. I don't care where you get it. We, of course, recommend WillCrafter and WillCrafter Lite. There are other products that are available, but you can do your own will if you have a smartphone. WillCrafter Lite, of course, is for iPhones and iPads. Notwithstanding, you can get a do-it-yourself will kit. So there you have it. I hope you now know the benefits of not having a will.